Jai Guruji, Shukrana Guruji, Shukrana Multilingual and Suresh Uncle for this opportunity. Lakh Shukrana Guru Maharaj. Sangatji, today we will be reading page number 36. Like a mother, he holds us close to the blossom. So much so happened since my family and I had Guruji's first darshan. Before then, my life was in mess. My father was in a coma and has been hospitalized for a month and a half. Being a doctor, I was well aware of all the complications that could arise and hence could not bring myself to leave this bedside. Then came a day when my frustration rose and I couldn't take it no more. Everything seems to be going wrong. Finances were at all-time low. Every passing minutes, trying to keep my father alive was an ordeal. My mother, sisters, brother were also trying their best. Nothing seems to work. I was feeling dejected, fighting back tears. I wondered why Guruji did not come to my family and rescue us. I'd always believed in him, loved him and trusted him, and with all my heart. So why wasn't he responding? I need to meet someone with whom I can share all my sorrows without having uttered a word. Someone who would watch me over, someone who would give me strength to face reality and bail me out whenever I'm in trouble. I needed him. One night I came home, but could not sleep. Around 3 a.m., my brother Shiv rushed to my room and gave me some prasad. Shiv told me that he has been to Guruji and narrated some of the miracles he had heard over years. I slept well that night. Next day, my husband and I decided to go to Guruji's darshan. Little did we know that nobody could reach him until he ordains. I had imagined that I would be meeting a long-bearded Babaji sitting in under a tree, but I was taken by surprise. He was a person who had such an intense aura, who had the innocence of a child when he smiled, whose eyes seemed to penetrate through very being, touching you. I was overwhelmed after meeting him. His fragrance was intense, as if a lot of roses essence has been spread around. He made us sit right next to him and somehow made us feel secure. For some strange reason, I felt tensed, drained out of me. He also assured me of all would be well. The very next day, I took my twins boy, who were about 4 years then, to see Guruji's blessings. On the way back, I asked them to do pranam to Guruji. My elder brother Daksh politely declined, saying that he only touched Shivji's feet. As I walked up to Guruji to pay his respect, Daksh just stood down there while Dhruv bowed. I just felt very bad. Daksh did not touch his feet till then. Suddenly, I felt like Daksh had gone back to Guruji and touched his feet. Later, I teasingly asked the little fellow why he did so. He innocently replied that he touched Shivji's feet. Thus, unnoticed by everybody, Guruji had given him darshan to Daksh. Gradually, things started getting better and help. My father's treatment came from all quarters from Guruji's blessing. My husband too found his dream job. Nothing will happen to your child. Then in year 2000, Daksh developed a loss of appetite accompanied with fever, weight loss and enlarged lymph nodes. The doctor treated him with antibiotics but nothing worked. It was a Monday and when we took him to Sri Gangaram hospital to get him examined by a senior specialist, I feared the worst. Daksh's symptoms were pointing towards a cancer process. I clutched at Guruji's picture, then walked him in the doctor's cabin. I was praying for my son's good health and repeatedly asking Guruji for his blessing. I knew that it was in his power to control the ailment in a split second. The cabin filled with fragrance. I had heard that if you remember Guruji truly, he would come to your rescue. Then Rosie sent signifying his presence. The doctor examined Daksh and was very upset and looked disappointingly at me. He had found about the spleen and liver enlarged, clearly pointing towards malignancy. The doctor made me feel that enlarged organs and asked for this ultrasound of an abdomen immediately to assess the extent of the environment. I was near to tears, fervently praying to Guruji to take care of his problem. I had to hear so many miracles. I had heard so many miracles and was convinced that he could cure my son. Throughout the 40 minutes drive to the radiologist, Guruji's fragrance reached out to us reassuringly. While the ultrasound was being conducted, my son and I could feel strongly the present fragrance of Guruji's lingered around. With Guruji's blessing, the ultrasound was normal. The entire diagnosis changed. Even the liver spleen were found to be normal in size. Guruji had listened to our prayers and had given a new lease of life to our son. In the beginning, we reached Guruji's place hoping to talk to him about the day's event. We were pleasantly surprised as we entered the hall. For all, he called out with a mischievous smile on the lips. So, what was the diagnosis? I was overwhelmed. He already knew that had happened during the day and yet had given us an opportunity to satisfy our curiosity. I told him that the doctors were suspecting cancer. He kept quiet. I was near to tears when he said, "Don't worry, nothing will happen to your child." I inquired if I needed to conduct the various tests that were due. He answered that I was a doctor. I would not understand and I could go ahead that had I wished to. Somewhere my logical mind would not let me rest and with him. So I got a government of investigation conducted on my son. Believe me or not, each one came out normal. Finally, a biopsy conducted on a lymph node, which by now had started joining, so known as webimating. The lymph node that was removed showing changes to the naked eye. I was confused. How could this be? Guruji has said that all would be fine. But then why this? All of his thoughts came to my mind and I was distracted. That evening I was asked to come to Satsang Sangat once a week only. I wondered why he had done this. Next week the biopsy results came and they were normal. The surgeon could not believe. He said that it was a miracle. We were of course knew who had performed it. Guruji has blessed my son, so this had been. A few weeks later, Guruji once said just like that, "Ja main tere munde nu theek karta. I have cured your son." From that day, the fever disappeared and my son's appetite improved. The lymph node was reduced and waiting disappeared. Thanks to Guruji, Daksh became alright. No medication whatsoever was given to him, as no conclusive diagnosis about the condition could ever be made. With Guruji, every moment is a miracle and worth loving for. He holds your hand and guides you gently. He carries your burden on himself without letting you know. He clears a path ahead and makes it soft and pleasant. He shields you all from all the evil, all wrongs, and holds you close to the bosom like a mother would to protect her child. And when you go wrong, he gently prods you back to right path. He listens to you every breath you take and gives you the faith to believe that goodness of God. That is him. Unassumingly, he watched you all over you and all other lives that were fleetingly touch you, blessing each of all the way. He has no ears, no ego, no makes no demands. He is forever forgiving. He is unfathomable. Amongst the thousand that throngs under junction, not a single goes unblessed. Each one of us feels blessed that it is with him. He showed the correct way of conducting one's duties in the world. He suffers silently when he go to astray and would also when he takes the burden of working on himself. Believe me, there is no one like him. Never has been and never will be. My mother was hospitalized some years ago and the doctors have felt that hemoglobin was very low and she would need a transfusion. We rushed to Guruji and shared our worries with him. He smiled and blessed. The next day she came back home and all the tests was normal. The healers in the white clothes. My maternal aunt Mossy, who had never been to Guruji, one day slipped into a deep coma and was admitted to ICU. The doctor suspected that the hemorrhage had brain hemorrhage. As she had very high blood pressure. Guruji was not in Delhi at that time, and I prayed Guruji for the photograph for his blessings and cure. While her CT scan was taking place, Guruji fragrance filled the CT scan room, and the CT scan report came normal. I left my Masi still in deep coma at night. But I was pleasantly surprised to see her sitting on her bed the next morning, very much conscious. She told me the last night before a very fair person in the white clothes had waken her up and asked her to get up. I immediately knew that Guruji has blessed her. She is absolutely normal today, and we still do not know why she slipped into coma, and all her tests were normal. Guruji's returned from Jalandhar about 3 months later, and as soon as I bent down to touch his feet, smiled. मासी को ठीक कर लिया. We've got your Masi cured by me as well. I was surprised, but he was not even here. And nobody about my Masi's illness no. By then he, but then he knew everything. I should have realized this. This is amazing how Guruji keeps an eye on you whenever you go, whether in this country or abroad. Time and distance doesn't matter. He is beyond time and beyond the realm of space. Some years ago, I took ill, and I was also admitted to the hospital with a fever, battle, and breathlessness. I was put on injectables, inhaler, and oxygen, but I continued to suffer. It was Friday when the consultant decided to do a CT scan of my chest. The radiologist saw the scan. He remarked that it was not a normal scan, and whenever it was had spread to most of my lungs. I would need further evaluation. I was alone in the hospital that day, and the only person I could turn to and knew who would look after me was Guruji. I prayed to him the whole day. In the evening, I went to Guruji. Out of the blue, he turned to me and asked me how I was. I told him I was admitted to the hospital and had difficulty in breathing, and that every night since Monday I had been so sick that the ICU doctors had been called out. I called. I also told them that CT scan of one of the lungs was bad and prayed that he cure me. He smiled benevolently and said that he has cured me and I was fine. I couldn't hold my tears. In a fraction of a second, he has removed all my problems. That night, I feel so relieved that I slept without any medication. I had not slept for the last 4-5 nights. The doctors came to check and found me sleeping without any oxygen support. They went back surprised. How in this world would they know that the highest power in the world was at work? The next morning, I requested a discharge and came home. I'm feeling fine since that 3 days ago, and have not undergone any test. Since time ago, some time ago, my husband, also a doctor, has been experiencing some early morning discomfort almost a week. An ECG detected changes, and we thought of admitting him, but my husband refused and came back home. He said he would rather go to Guruji than he take his permission and then go admitted. I took him into another cardiologist early that morning. Even he suggested some evaluation at the earliest. At changes in the ECG was clear and substantial. We panicked and decided to see Guruji right away, knowing very well that it would not be possible to meet him at this hour. We were amazed to find ourselves in the front of him. He looked at us and said, "So you have come to get Arun cured?" I was overwhelmed and told him all that happened. With a wave of the hand and reassuring look, he said that it was nothing and that Arun would be fine. He asked Arun to go back to the office and resume work instead of going back to the hospital. Guruji also prescribed 2 packs of whiskey and a wheatgrass extract daily. A few weeks later, Guruji told Arun that he has cured his heart, else doctor would have had to operate upon it. With Guruji's blessing, Arun is fine today. So we are thankful to Guruji for blessing us and giving us a happy life. We pray that he watches for over us forever. His blessing extended to my sister as well. She fell sick and a pathologist indicated a diagnosis of some kind of lymphoma. But Guruji blessed her and she had nothing and would be fine. The next morning there was a call from that lab. They said there was some confusion regarding the samples and my sister was fine. But it was not just my family that was blessed. My neighbor, Mr. Sethi, who was diagnosed with acute pancreatitis, had been admitted to ICU. The doctors had a very little hope of recovery. Guruji blessed him, and today the man is back at work. In the matter of days, Mr. Sethi's critical condition turned normal thanks to Guruji. The doctors say that Sethi is very lucky, but we know that he is very blessed. Once Guruji visited hospital ICU where a young man, Man Singh, was suffering from brain fever, cervical malaria. He was on a respirator and undergoing dialysis as well. The doctors had lost hope of recovery. Man Singh's brother came to Guruji that the photograph and Guruji recognized him. Though nobody had told Guruji anything about Man Singh, Guruji blessed Man Singh. Within the next 2 weeks, he was discharged and is now very healthy and back at work. The family, which have got back a member for their own from a dangerous disease, keep thanking Guruji ceaselessly. Without you, sins beyond. My twin sons would constantly squabble about who was elder. One day, Guruji cleared all their doubts by pointing out that one was elder to the other by 6 minutes. I was amazed to hear this, as due to complication during her birth, the doctor could not note down the time of the birth of the second twins, second twin. I wondered how he knew this. He suddenly turned and answered that he was the only one who had blessed me with these 2 sons, so he knew. And that was before I had gone to him, before I knew him as Guruji, before I had felt his presence in my life. Obviously, he had known me since way beyond and had keeping timelessly watch. Unsurprisingly, then every single minute at Guruji's is filled with miracles. I thank Guruji for blessing there for us now and always. Satsang of Dr. Anita. Jai Guruji, Shukrana Guruji, Shukrana Guru Maharaj for these beautiful blessings. Lakh lakh Shukrana, Anantam Koti Koti Shukrana Guru Maharaj. हर पल हर क्षण का शुक्राना. Sangat ji, today we read like a mother, he holds us close to the blossom from page number 36 to page number 42. जय गुरु जी. शुक्राना गुरु जी. लाख लाख शुक्राना महाराज. भूल चूक की माफी. जय गुरु जी.